Place your parents. Ready, begin. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to a very special podcast that I'm doing today. I didn't know how much I wanted to dive into this topic, but because of all of the activity going on with these topics, I felt that I needed to talk about these topics. Because of all the rhetoric that is surrounding these topics, I felt I needed to put my spin on this narrative. The narrative is racism, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of conversation about what should be happening when it comes to Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and All Lives Matter. So I felt like I needed to address this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some commentary, some video and provide commentary on two people that have been very vocal when it comes to the Black community and the things that go on with the Black community. And for some reason, their message is being broadcast heavily throughout America in regards of the state of the Black community. These people are conservatives, which is the opposite of what Black Lives Matter represents and stands for. A lot of people feel like at this particular point, Black Lives Matter has gotten away from what it's actually should be. So right now I'm going to play this commentary. Fair use. And we're going to get into this conversation about what's going on in America in regards to all of this racism. Let's do it.
This one, great title. Beaten Black and Blue, being a cop in America under siege. Our buddy, Brandon Tatum. Hey, Brandon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Dan. Ready to get into this.
Yeah, let's get right after it. You saw the video. You were a cop. I've said this multiple times. You guys and gals have 1 to 3 seconds, if that, to react. This gentleman was in the process of being cuffed, by the way, I'll point out, by a black officer. He didn't comply. I hate to use the phrase because the left hates when I say it, they attack me, but comply, don't die, dang it. And he fights, he struggles, he gets back in the car. She made a fatal mistake. She grabbed the wrong piece. I get it. But why didn't he just comply? We wouldn't even be having this discussion right now.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem here. You know, I see two things here. I see a training issue and I also see a compliance issue. I don't know why in the world the African-American people in this country do this on a day-to-day basis. Everybody cries about Philando Castile and all these other people who have resisted arrest and ended up getting killed, but yet they do it time and time again. What was his expected end in this? Did he feel like they were just going to let him go just because he didn't want to go to jail? What you start with is not having a warrant for your arrest, and then when it's time to go to jail, just go to jail. Now, I do see a problem with this young lady is that you are signed up for a job. You should be trained. You should be ready to go. You would never pull a gun out instead of a taser because you end up killing killing somebody, unfortunately. So I personally believe that she wasn't malicious, had nothing to do with race. I don't think that she should be charged criminally. I think it was an accident in the heat of the moment. There was no culpable state there for her killing this guy. It was an accident. However, when you make accidents like that, you are no longer allowed to be a police officer.
Right.
She should not be a police officer anymore
Right.
because she cannot handle her composure. She don't know the difference between a gun and a taser. And that's a training issue.
Right.
Because
Which means you don't
need to be
defund the
poised under
police
pressure.
if you want to train cops better. So that will then poke
Yeah.
a hole, what you're saying, in the narrative of defund, because you need to train them so they're better trained so this doesn't happen.
Right. You're going to see an influx in these people who are probably not as well trained, who are scared to death when they're on duty because they're this rhetoric against law enforcement. If they would stop pushing this dangerous rhetoric against law enforcement, give law enforcement more money to train individuals, maybe this young lady wouldn't be so flustered and pull her gun out instead of a taser. So there's two faults in this.
So here's my issue with this. I don't have an issue with everything that Brandon Tatum says, but there are some things that I find to be very ironic. There are some things I find to be very disingenuous when it comes to what he says. First of all, I don't care how flustered you are as a police officer. If I'm a citizen and I'm going, I'm traveling the roads, the highways and byways, whether with myself, friends, or family, you stopping me for a traffic ticket or doing a routine traffic stop should not cause my death. I don't care how many warrants I have. I don't care what I'm doing. Unless I'm attacking you, then you should not be attacking me. I think the issue right here is when we make excuses for poor behavior. When we make excuses for scenes that leave us on the ground getting punched, leave us getting shot, and leave us in a state where now we have to protest and we have to riot, we have to cause ruckus. Some shit has to burn. And then we get on these platforms and we use people like Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens, both black conservatives, and we let them say what Caucasian Americans really want to say. But they know that it won't sound good coming from them, like Ben Shapiro. So we use people like Brandon Tatum to attack Black Lives Matter, to attack or talk about Black America. I want you guys to see what he says about Black America. And this is great that he goes on here and he has a platform and someone says, oh, let me bring him on Real America where we have thousands of people. Well, here's the thing. A lot of those people that view these type of shows, they're not black people. They're people like this. There are people that are being told how bad black people are. Black people are killing each other. Black people are criminals. Let's just be honest. These are the type of people that Brandon Tatum talks to. He doesn't go into school systems where there's predominantly black people. He doesn't go into neighborhoods where it's predominantly black people. He is put in place, just like Candace Owens, to make white people feel comfortable about talking about black people. I want you guys to hear what he says and how far left he takes this. Here we go.
I don't think she will be charged criminally. I don't think she should. It was an accident.
Yes.
And those accidents happen when you are a dummy and you want to resist arrest. Things will happen to you. Either she shot you there or they shoot you when you're down the road in a high-speed chase. I have no sympathy for this young man who's out here committing crimes, have warrant for his arrest, and decided to fight the police and try to drive off. I have no sympathy for him.
Thank
you.
I
also feel like this officer should be held accountable.
Why is he saying thank you? Why is the host saying thank you? This black man says, I have no sympathy for him. He's out here committing crimes where, from my understanding, he was stopped based on a traffic stop. They ran his name and said, okay, you have a warrant. Well, my thought process is this, ladies and gentlemen. Anytime that you have a warrant, do you deserve to die? Resisting arrest can be easily as they grab your wrist and you yank your wrist back. That's resisting arrest. Do you deserve to die for that? I have no sympathy. I don't know why when it comes to black people, their background predicates on how you should be treated by the police. Can somebody explain that to me? I'm kind of lost. Why does my background matter in the moment? Why does my background matter in the moment? That means if I have a criminal record or I have a record of wrongdoing, why does that matter when it comes to how you treat me as a human being? Like, we're under this impression if you serve your debt to society, then you should be treated equally or whatever case may be. But then we have people like Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens who go on shows and start saying, well, I have no sympathy for this young man, this 20-year-old man. Lady, I'm about to piss somebody off. So you telling me that if you 20 years old and you've done some criminal activity, you ain't got the you shouldn't be given a second chance. You don't have time to turn your life around. Do you know how many pastors out there, how many congressmen out there, how many judges out there that have done wrong, that had an opportunity to change their life? And you're telling me that you have no sympathy for this man, this young boy who jumped back in the car. He's resisting arrest. And because an officer got frustrated, because an officer was undertrained, because an officer decided that instead of knowing the difference between a taser and a gun, shot this young boy. Shot him. If you look at the video footage, you will see that her partner, her black partner, was in the way, was tussling with this Mr. Wright, and she could have shot her partner. I want you guys to listen to Brandon Tatum as he explains the black community and the state of black America in America to this white gentleman who wants to be the one who says this, but they brung a black guy on here to say it, which that's my problem. Because if Brandon Tatum wanted to help the black community, he would be talking to the black community. However, people like Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens gets paid to talk for white people, get paid to use talking points that only another race would use against black people. Forget the resisting arrest. If I'm resisting arrest and we're in a hand-to-hand tussle, that does not mean I deserve to get shot. That is no excuse for that. Just like it wouldn't be an excuse for the person that's getting arrested to pull out a knife, to pull out a gun. It is no reason to pull out a gun on someone that is unarmed. That is cowardly. But he makes excuses for it. Here we go.
Accountable because of her actions as well.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't agree. Everything you just said, I'm in full agreement with, Brand. You sent us a video over that has you narrating an officer involved incident. And I want to roll that real quick. It's about a minute, and then have you comment on that as well, because you obviously have walked a beat. You've ridden in the cruiser. You've, taken down suspects. You know what it's like, where these media folks who just went after the chief of police today and the mayor, asking them nasty, angled questions and stuff. People just don't understand it. Or these politicians that are protected by armed guards. They make all these statements out there inciting more violence between the races when they don't get what it's like to be a cop. So let's roll this video, which has, I believe, you narrating it, and then we'll chat about it.
Pull over this guy on a traffic stop, looked to be a legitimate traffic stop, doesn't seem to be combative. The guy showed registration and insurance. The officer noticed that he has a weapon on him. And so for the officer's safety, he said, hey, do you mind if I take the weapon off of you while we have this police encounter? I'll give it back to you after it's over. Which seems to be very normal to say to somebody and non-confrontational. But then watch what happens.
All right, hold on. All right, let's go to my vehicle, okay? Come on.
Now, right here, he already in a bad position. This guy has a gun in his hand. He cannot see the gun, and this is not going to end well.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the bullshit that I'm talking about. I don't care if you left wing, right wing, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat. I don't care who you are. This is the problem. This is what this video, Brandon Tatum is trying to say justifies the killing of Mr. Wright. Using this video and this narrative, the reason why this police woman was so afraid was so shook when Brandon Tatum when Mr. Wright jumped back in the vehicle. Oh my God, because of this video. Totally different situations. One, this policeman is by himself. That's one. He did a traffic stop by himself. That was not the case with Mr. Wright. Totally different. Two, how long does it take to pull a weapon? Somebody would say, well, it doesn't take that long to pull a weapon. Rightfully so. But as soon as he jumped back in the vehicle, here's my thought process. Until you see a gun, you don't shoot. Until you see a knife, you don't shoot. You shot an unarmed civilian, an unarmed pedestrian, an unarmed 20-year-old man. It's no excuse. There's no excuse, but we're making excuses by saying, let me show a video where the traffic stop ended bad. Let me show a video to justify the killing of Mr. Wright, to justify him being on the phone with his mother and she hearing him getting shot. These are the excuses that are being made. He had a warrant for his arrest. One excuse. He resisted arrest. Two excuses. He tried to jump in the car and leave. Three excuses. He had a criminal record. Four excuses. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. When we start saying treat people like people, unless you saw a weapon, don't shoot. These type of scenes are not justified, ladies and gentlemen. They're not justified. No matter who says it, no matter how they articulate it, no matter what videos they put with it, no matter who's paying them to say it.
So they blurred out. The cop is here, deceased. This guy gets in the car. He takes off.
Look at the time you guys have to react. And so, yes, she drew the wrong weapon. But again, that guy turned. It appeared he was reaching for.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the whole situation. Yes, the police officer drew the wrong weapon. That's the situation. That is the narrative, lady. I'm about to piss somebody off. That's the narrative. That is the narrative. Yes, she drew the wrong weapon as a trained police officer who panicked from a guy that was maybe 75 pounds soaking wet, tussling with someone who was way bigger than him. Did he say gun? Did he say knife? How could you be that untrained? How could you be that flustered to see two men tussling? Do you see how easily this guy? Oh, well, it was she just simply, like, hold on, I got to do this. I got to do this. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Listen to how he explains this away. She just made a mistake. She just made a mistake. And the mistake cost somebody their life. I don't care if they're black, white, Chinese, Hispanic. It cost somebody their life.
Look at the time you guys have to react. And so, yes, she drew the wrong weapon. But again, that guy turned. It appeared he was reaching for his back, Mr. Wright, in what just happened.
How is that the same situation? How is that the same situation? First of all, the officer clearly, in this last video that I just showed, the officer clearly saw that the guy had a weapon. So he should have handled that situation totally different. Totally different. But he didn't. Hell, he should have called for backup and just stood there and watched the guy with his hand on his firearm. There are so many ways he could have handled this situation. However, he did not. God rest his soul, he did not. However, that does not justify the shooting of Mr. Wright, a 20-year-old man who had a warrant for his arrest, and a cop standing there screaming, taser, taser, taser. I don't know if you guys have ever played football or ever played hide and seek or where people say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Well, when you're saying taser, 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 guess what you're doing? That's premeditated murder. That's premeditated murder. You're telling me if I'm holding a gun out in front of my arms parallel to where I can see, you're telling me you don't see a gun in your hand? You don't feel a gun in your hand? There is no cop that has jumped online yet and says that a taser is the same, feels the same as a gun. That is the same weight as a gun. Let's stop making all of these narratives that, oh, well, you know what? She just made a mistake. But he had a criminal record, so that's okay. That's not okay. I don't care if you served life in prison and you just got out on good behavior and now you get stopped by the police and you resist arrest. You still don't deserve to die. You justify the killing of human beings based on if they have criminal records or not. Is that what we're doing now? You're justifying the killing of human beings based on if they have criminal records or not. Think about it. George Floyd, criminal record. Jacob Blake, criminal record. You justify actions of police officers based on the fact if you had a criminal record. Like that's the first thing that comes out. God forbid if you get shot in the process, well, you deserved it. At some point in time, you resisted arrest. Do you know how easy it is, ladies and gentlemen, for someone to say that you resisted arrest? Do you know how easy the lieutenant that just got stopped in Virginia that got pulled over by the two cops now is suing the Virginia Police Department, and from my understanding, winning. Sprayed him in the face with mace, threw him on the ground in uniform, held him at gunpoint. This shit is ridiculous, and we make excuses for it instead of calling it what it is. Whether it was a mistake or not, it was a deadly mistake. A mistake is, goddammit, you dropping a glass. A mistake is you stepping on somebody's shoe. A mistake is you accidentally bumping into someone at a grocery store. A mistake is not shooting someone.
In Brooklyn Center and then dove back into his car for what? You don't know. And so she pulled her, unfortunately, piece and shot him instead of taser. And like that one there, he made a bad call. I just wish people would understand what you guys have to go through out there, and they don't get it, Brandon.
I think you're under the impression, you're under this false impression that, let me ask you guys a question. Suppose we change the narrative a little bit, right? Suppose this cop overreacting to a situation, that bullet that she shot screaming taser, taser, taser would have flew through the car and hit an oncoming car that was driving by and killed a kid. Would it be so like innocent then? I mean, we're thinking 20 years old. A lot of people don't even take that to be serious. They don't even take, oh, well, they just 20. They young. They haven't even started traveling yet. Hell, they might have started college. They might have not. They're just living in the prime of their life. What 20-year-olds do you know that are so, like, mature? No, come on. They still smoking weed and partying and having reckless sex and driving with the music loud. What 20-year-old you know that have it all together? They just have it all together. Can I see a 20-year-old resisting arrest? Yeah, I can see it. Can you expect it, or almost to expect it to a certain extent? Yeah, I can probably expect it to a certain extent. But do you deserve to die from that? I don't think you deserve to die from that. There is no excuses whether it was this guy or this guy. But when you start making excuses like, I wish people would understand how difficult a police officer's job is. We're not saying that it's not difficult. We're saying you chose that job. You chose that job. And when you have a uniform on, you're expected to act accordingly. And when you don't act accordingly, you should be held responsible. Case in point, young man in this photo right here. Do you think, let me ask you a question. Should he be kicked out of a neighborhood he lives in by a white man because he's a criminal? Let's say at some point in time he went to court and something's on his record. Do he deserve this treatment by someone that should be upholding a certain standard, a certain level of discipline? Well, he has a juvenile record, so, it was okay what happened to him. It was okay for him to be bullied. It was okay for him to be harassed. Okay, well, we're saying this was okay. Him yanking away from a policeman and jumping in his car to drive off, we're saying that was okay. Well, you know what's so funny about the situation? He never drove off. Or did he drive off? I think he did drive off. He did drive off. I'm sorry. He did drive off and crash the car. But from my understanding, no policemen were hurt. No policeman was shot. No policeman was stabbed. I'm trying to get down to the nitty gritty of how you fail as a police officer means he deserved it because he had a warrant. I'm going to let y'all hear the rest of this. Here we go.
Brandon?
Yeah, and that's the most stressful thing that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, that people just don't get it. You have to be held accountable as a police officer. But my God, she probably watched that video before this traffic stop happened. People, you never know.
More excuses trying to justify why this police officer pulled out her gun instead of a taser. She probably watched this other video of a man getting shot, of a police officer getting shot. So therefore, when Mr. Wright and the other officer was tussling, the best thing she could do was pull out her taser, so she says, and fire it. Even if she would have struck her partner, it was okay. Brandon Tatum, I am disappointed in you. Candace Owens, I am disappointed in you that you would come on this show and you would try to make excuses for an officer who clearly killed a young man. And you justify it was just a mistake. However, he shouldn't have resisted arrest. Well, him resisting arrest didn't cause any officer to die.
When you are going to be attacked and assaulted by somebody for no reason, and you don't get to push restart as a police officer. When you're losing in the game, you hit the reset button, you start over. When you're a police officer, when you die, it is final. Your family would never see you again. And that's why these officers are so amped up in these situations. And this is 100% avoidable if you are a citizen. Don't resist arrest. Don't try to take police on a high-speed chase, because then you don't leave them open to making mistakes. This woman made a mistake. I don't think she should be charged criminally, but I do think that she had forfeited her right to be a police officer because of this mistake.
Brandon, running out of time, and I gotta get to this with you because I want your take on what happened immediately following, and I want to tie this to BLM. So we have the tragic events of yesterday, and this.
I'm so super disgusted with this whole situation right here. I don't know if you guys understand what's happening. I hope that Brandon Tatum followers come over here because I want you guys to hear. This is coming from a 20-year military vet, warrant officer, okay, talking to a former police officer and NFL football player. And here's my thought process. My thought process is, why go on a show to say how bad black people are? Why go on a predominantly white show to say how bad black people are? Why are you not talking to black people? Why are you not asking for change from black people? Instead, because this is what this guy do. The guy on the left, right? The host of this show. You invite a black man to come on that shares the same beliefs and views as you. And you want him to say the things that you can't say. You're a puppet. That's what this looks like. He's a ventriloquist talking about, oh, well, you say this for me, Brandon. You tell Black America how bad they are. You tell BLM, Black Lives Matter, how bad they are. And I want you to watch what he says Brandon Tatum says about Black Lives Matter. Again, not addressing how they can fix Black Lives Matter, but downplaying Black Lives Matter as if he is doing more for the black community than Black Lives Matter. Now, I have my issues with Black Lives Matter or my concerns, but I'm not going on a platform predominantly white to talk about Black Lives Matter. That would seem, that seems retarded to me, but I want you to hear what he says. And I want you to watch how the host uses Brandon Tatum to promote a message that he really wants to say. That he really wants to say, but he's using Brandon Tatum to do it. Now watch this.
Suburb by Minneapolis. We know tensions are running high because of the George Floyd trial. Immediately, what happens? BLM, hundreds of people, BLM Antifa go out, riot, destroy stuff, hurt cops, throw bottles, throw stuff at them. And we learn over the weekend that one of the main co-founders of the BLM spent $3.6 million over the past 4 or 5 years buying like 4 or 5 properties around this country with the cash she's raking in. Why? Because the money's not going to the black communities where it's supposed to go, because BLM, I'm sorry, is a farce. They're doing nothing but causing.
Ladies and gentlemen, how many organizations out there right now are collecting money from taxpayers, are getting donations from taxpayers that are not giving the money back to the communities? Y'all quiet as hell right now. How many times have you heard of organizations taking money and the CEOs or the board members of that particular company ran off with the money? They embezzled the money. Why would that have anything to do with this man's death? Why would a Black Lives Matter co-founder or CEO have anything to do with this man's death? And instead of Brandon Tatum saying that has nothing to do with the topic, sir. Nothing to do with the topic. So what we do is, so let me get this straight. Brandon Tatum, which is the guy wearing the Make America Godly Again, okay? He is supposed to sit here and tell you how bad Black Lives Matter is, to promote the narrative that Black Lives Matter is out there rioting and burning buildings and hurting police officers, all in the name of Mr. Right. And my thought process is this. Why? Why do you need Brandon Tatum to say this? Why can't you say this as the host? Why can't you say this? Why do you need Brandon Tatum to say this? Black men talking about black men, black people talking about black people. And at the end of the day, the pressure is still applied to the black community. What are we doing to fix it, Brandon Tatum? What are we doing to fix it, Candace Owens? What are we doing? And we're going to attack the black activists and saying, oh, they're buying homes with the money and this and this and this and this. Well, my thought process is, what are you doing for the black community?
More divide in this country. They're not bringing people together. They're not helping black communities. Your thoughts, and then we got to run.
Well, you know, the dumbest people in our society right now, these black activists and BLM, the dumbest people. How in the world?
The dumbest people, ladies and gentlemen. The dumbest people are these black activists. This is a black man on a white show talking about black activists are the dumbest people. I want you to let that breathe and resonate with you. Can you imagine me as a black man sitting in front of Black America talking about the dumbest people are these black activists? As if this man right here is an advocate for the black community. As if this man is in support of the black community. He didn't say some. He didn't say a few. He said the dumbest people are these black activists. Let me let it play.
does a man get killed and you claim to care about Martin Luther King, but you do nothing that he prescribed for us to do. You go out and burn your own cities and go steal stuff. That makes no sense in the world. You don't want police targeting black people because the violent actions of blacks. So don't target police officers because the violent action of one police officer. This young lady who started BLM has nothing to do with black folks. She go out and spend all this money buying up property to enrich herself on the backs of black deaths. And she's buying them in black and white neighborhoods.
Yeah.
She in Topanga Canyon is majority white.
I know.
These people don't give a flying flip about black folks. They are lining their pockets. They're putting money. They're building an economy in white communities that when this all is said and done, when it blows over, when black people are no longer relevant in this country as a whole, culture is being demonized, she's going to go up in her penthouse in the white neighborhood, spend her money in the white community, and forget this has ever happened. These people are a joke, and I wish that America would wake up to.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the same thing he's doing. Everything that he just said that the Black Lives Matter leader or activist is doing is the same thing that he's doing. He's getting donations. He's using his money how he wants. I guarantee he lives in a predominantly white neighborhood. He is married to a white woman. So I'm scratching my head like, how can you call her out, call the Black Lives Matter leader a false and a fraud, but you're doing the same thing? What you're doing doesn't benefit the black community. What you're saying doesn't benefit the black community. The donations you're getting does not benefit the black community. You're one and the same. It's the pot calling the kettle black.
To the farce that is BLM, the farce that is this woke protesting culture. They burn their own communities and they steal out of stores because somebody died at the hands of a law enforcement officer, but they will do nothing when black kids are getting shot to death in these inner cities. They won't even make a t-shirt, won't do a fundraiser, won't do a GoFundMe. They won't do crap. These people are evil, and I'll leave it at that.
Brandon Tatum, you are a fucking sucker. Everything he just named is exactly what happens in the black community. How many GoFundMes have you seen when a black person dies? How many t-shirts have you seen when a black person dies? This is him trying to appease someone else. It just came straight out his mouth. I didn't make him say this shit. Everything he just said is exactly what black people do in the damn inner cities. Think about that. How many times have I said on my show, damn, we need to stop these GoFundMes and actually get life insurance so that way when you die, you're not leaving bills and your funeral can be covered. GoFundMes is the go-to. Making t-shirts. Hey, I'm tired of seeing all these black people on t-shirts talking about RIP. Let's just stop killing each other. Let's just stop having all of these deaths, period. So everything you just named is exactly what they do. But the fact of the matter is, you're saying this on a white network to appease a white audience. That's the issue. Brandon Tatum, dude, listen, whoever you married, whoever you love, whoever you had kids by, that's not in question. However, the point of the matter is, you're not doing anything for the black community. You're not advocating for the black community. That's the problem. As a black man married to a white woman who has mixed kids, you're not advocating for the black community. So then when you turn around and say, well, these black activists, all of them are stupid, all of them are dumb, all of them are idiots. Well, what are you doing to support the black community? Because the majority of your money comes from donations from white people who listen to you say how dumb black people are. I'm just curious, like, what's the difference here? Black Lives Matter gets donations, you get donations. You talk your rhetoric, they talk their rhetoric. You're in defense of police officers. Okay. But the message that you're saying should be said as a big brother, as a gentleman that says, hey, I was a football player, I was a former police officer. Let me talk to the black community real quick. Hey, you guys, we got to do better. hey, you guys, you know what I'm saying, taking it out on all police officers or property. You know, let's change the narrative and refocus our energy onto changing policies. But your whole goal and mindset is to get on here and be a puppet for someone and think that it's great and think that it's awesome. And this shit is sad. I would love to do a one-on-one conversation with Brandon Tatum and Candace Owens. You know what's so funny? I actually issued that challenge like a year ago, and someone said something. I think it was around the time George Floyd died, because I was kind of disgusted about the comments that Candace Owens has said. But the fact of the matter is, someone said, "Oh, she'll destroy you." Destroy me? It's a simple conversation. Either you can have it or not. But I noticed that Brandon Tatum only talks to people who have a shared acceptance of what he believes. None of them live in projects. None of them promote the black community. All of them are kind of like this whole, I voted for Trump. Trump was the best president of ever. He did so much for the black community and this and this and this. I noticed that him as a black conservative, they never really talk to black people unless they sound a certain way, they look a certain way, they have a certain, they carry themselves a certain type of way. Let's get back into this.
That's all we got to end it with. Brandon Tatum, thanks for coming on the program, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks,
Be
Dave.
safe, brother.
Candace Owens is the host of Candace. She joins us tonight. Candace, thanks so much for coming on. Maybe I'm being too soft, but anybody who can talk, America's woke corporate structure into sending close to $100 million on the basis of that lame rap kind of gets my respect in a way.
She has my respect because she's unapologetic in her approach. She's telling you what she is. She's a Marxist. So Marxists steal money from other people and they enrich themselves
Right.
until the people that they stole from are poor. And so she has stolen money from other people on the pretext of a lie that is Black Lives Matter. And she's enriched herself and she's brought 4 homes. I mean, you have to kind of appreciate the honesty. She's not hiding by any means, And so, yeah, I tend to agree with you here. She's a communist through and through, and she's been unbelievably unapologetic in her approach.
Al Sharpton must be looking at this and saying, I've done this for 40 years. Where did I go wrong? I don't have a house in Topanga Canyon.
Right, exactly right. It's completely ridiculous.
But,
and, you're right. The corporations are standing behind her, which is incredibly interesting. And you pointed to something really important. These corporations that are pouring millions and millions of dollars into Black Lives Matter. And you're correct. They said we raised more than $90 million. How much more, we will never know. But $90 million, of which $21 million apparently went to, according to Black Lives Matter themselves, it went to building the black movement. I don't even know what that means. $25 million going to building a black movement. Apparently, the black movement was Patrice moving herself, a black woman moving herself into other areas of the communities of people that she claims are oppressing black Americans. She's fearful of white people. White people are so bad. Well, why doesn't she want to live amongst black people? Why is she choosing to move herself into an all-white neighborhood? These are important questions.
Yeah, I think they are.
You know what's so funny? I think the problem that I have with this situation is that I find that these conservatives, these Candace Owens people, Brandon Tatum, I find that we have so many pressing issues going on in America. So many pressing issues going on in America where all types of races can come together and have a conversation to try to do their best to end racism. Try to do their best to say, let's write what it is that we have an issue with, so we can come together, so we can have the tough conversation. But it's like we missing the mark. We're missing the mark on what's actually going on, so that way we can ignore the problem. And how long do we ignore the problem? I believe that it's just like what everybody else says. Candace Owens, she speaks so well. She carries herself so professional. Look at how she dresses, and oh my God, yay. And what it really boils down to is, why are you not using your platform to promote black people? to give black people a way ahead. To say, you know what, I'm gonna be the first black woman president. Let me talk about advocating for the black community, because I realize how oppressed they are, or I realize the difficulties that they have. It's like I'm going to go on a white show, right? And I'm going to laugh and giggle because someone brought her home. Well, here's the thing. If you're giving your time and your effort and your energy to any organization and you can benefit from that organization, then rightfully so. Candace Owens benefits from donations from both black and white people. I'm sure she lives in a nice home, but why is that the conversation? Why are we not talking about more pressing issues? Why are we not talking about racism? Because obviously people feel like racism exists. Obviously people feel like racism is a problem. Is it not? This is taught. This is bred. This is happening in people's communities, in people's schools, in people's churches, in people's organizations. Why are we not talking about the tougher conversation? Black people are doing this. Black people are doing that. Black people are doing that. Well, at what point in time do we get to a point where it's say, you know what? Let's stop saying black people and stop saying white people and stop saying, let's just talk about people and what people need to do to help abolish racism. But I kind of feel like it's just this natural thing now. It's so easy to just say, well, black people are killing black people don't care, black people hurt, just it's so easy to poke fun at black people. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to abolish racism? What are we doing? Let's get back to it.
It's not. It's Topanga Canyon, not Riverside County. Really quickly, the looting that we're seeing in Minneapolis was just reflexive. This police shooting does sound like it raises questions about the competence of the police officer and what's going on with the Minneapolis Police Department. Maybe they've lowered the standards. Maybe there aren't, enough cops. Who knows? We should find out, I think. But looting in immediate response to that, why would we put up with that?
We shouldn't put up with that, but the reason why we do is because the Democrats see some advantage in this, right? So right now you have a bunch of criminals that love Black Lives Matter as an organization. They love when a black person dies, and we don't know what the reasons are. We don't know what happened, but it signals to them that they are now allowed to run into the streets and grab whatever they want, whether it's from Target, whether it's from Walmart. And what's remarkable also is that these corporations are standing behind Black Lives Matter, right? They're pouring money into these corporations. And I remember most notably during the George Floyd riots, Target even came out and said, we don't even care that we were rioted and looted because we just stand with Black Lives Matter. That's not a normal thing for a corporation to do when it's losing money. So that means that a corporation must be getting something else, right? What is it? What are they investing in when they invest in the lie that is Black Lives Matter? What is the return? I think Josh Hawley alluded to it in the previous segment, and I think you're onto something.
I want to propose this thing for Candace Owens and for Brandon Tatum. If Black Lives Matter is a farce, is a falsehood, is something where black people should not get behind or give money to, what should we rally behind? What should black people rally behind? Should they say that, you know what, there is no such thing as police brutality, there is no such thing as systematic racism, there is no such thing as mass incarceration, there is no such, hell, slavery didn't even happen. What should black people rally behind? What should our talking points be? What should the conversation be about? Because it's great to hear people say Black Lives Matter ain't shit. Black Lives Matter, hey, all they're doing is causing chaos, and they're rioting, and they're looting, and they're hurting police officers who have nothing to do with the situation. My thought process is, well, if Black Lives Matter ain't shit, who should black people rally behind? Who should black people listen to? If you say the activists, all the black activists are dumb. So you mean to tell me all of the black people that voted for Donald Trump, all the black people that are Republicans, all the black people that are conservatives. They're the smart ones. They are the smart ones, and that's who we should rally behind. We should rally behind the Brandon Tatums. We should rally behind the Candace Owens, because they are leading us to the promised land. And no one that does not think like Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum is smart or intelligent enough to have a conversation, is enough to pose solutions for black people. We attack the organization, we attack the people, but no one is giving us solutions to say, instead of listening to Black Lives Matter, listen to them. This is my issue when I listen to politics or people talk about certain narratives. They'll tell you what the problem is, but won't give you a solution to fix the problem. I'm going to tell you how bad Black Lives Matter is, but I'm not going to give you a solution to fix the narrative. I'm not going to give you a solution to change the rhetoric. And here's what's so funny. You mean to tell me everyone that is looting, everyone that is rioting, they all belong to the Black Lives Matter organization? Everyone that is doing something harmful and disrespectful to police officers all belong to the Black Lives Matter organization. When you see stuff like this, you should not be upset. This is just one person doing one bad thing. I'm going to be honest with you. If I was from Minneapolis, I'm going to tell you, you don't have any more chances. You've had your chance. If we didn't learn anything from the George Floyd thing, goddamn it, the training should have started then. The training should have started then. If you're that nervous and you panic that much that you're saying, oh my God, I don't know what you're reaching for, but I'm going to go ahead and shoot you. Get that out the way. Let's get that out the way first. We make all these excuses. So let me get this straight. Black Lives Matter is a falsehood, but we're saying that the police department is undertrained. So get rid of Black Lives Matter, but keep the police. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. There are a lot of people that believe in this narrative that Black lives do matter. A lot of people don't believe that, hey, I'm going to run out into the streets and I'm going to burn down every car and every business and every, organizational setting that I see, every brick and mortar that I see. But there are people that are frustrated. There are people that are under this impression like enough is enough. Can you imagine if your son or daughter goes out to a protest and all of a sudden they're getting hit with rubber bullets or tear gas or getting sprayed with hoses? You know what? I heard this commentary from another podcaster who was saying that, the Minnesota Police Department should up the ante and bring out water hoses and start spraying the protesters. And I thought that was the dumbest shit I ever heard. I thought it was dumb as fuck. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, could have been your son, your uncle, your nephew, your cousin, your best friend. Hell, somebody just played basketball with. And when you watch that video, it does not justify him getting shot. I don't care how you spin it. I don't care how you fold it. I don't care what you thought. It doesn't justify him getting shot. And I know that several things, for some reason, when black men are getting shot, all of these other things are being listed. Like, let's talk about his criminal record. Let's talk about him jaywalking 5 years ago. Let's talk about how he cheated on a math test when he was in the 5th grade. He was not a good person. I'm about to piss somebody off. Let's talk about how he was not a good person. It's becoming tiresome. I am tired of seeing people die. I am tired of hearing, say his name, say her name. I'm tired of the narrative that as soon as someone dies, the first thing we need to look at is their criminal background. The first thing we need to advocate for is how much of a bad person or a bad citizen this person was. We go from this scene to this scene. Let me put this in perspective. Let's say this scene happened first. Let's say this scene happened first to this scene. And then once I beat you to a pulp, once I accidentally shoot you, once I accidentally break your arm, once I accidentally give you a black eye, then we go to, well, they had a criminal record, so it's justified. They shouldn't have been resisting arrest. Let me ask you a question. You think the man on the ground right now is resisting arrest or blocking his face? Which one do you think it is? You know what? He deserves to get punched because he violated probation, or he has a criminal record for he jaywalked and stole some candy bars. He stole like a whole case of candy bars. So he's a criminal. He wasn't a productive citizen. He wasn't a human being. It's such a hard job to determine how many times I should punch this guy, and then arrest him. I don't know why we're justifying murder with people being criminals. Well, don't let them out then. I'm just being real. Don't let them out of jail. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here first on Tough Love Podcast. If the whole push for the conservative side, for Republicans to say, well, we're not going to say this black person shouldn't have died because they have a criminal background, then don't let them out of jail. Don't let them out of jail then. If you know that you're going to stop someone, and based on the fact that if they have a criminal record, that determines if they should be killed or not. That determines if I'm going to go from a non-lethal to lethal weapons in a split second. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you guys something real quick about Mr. Wright. I want to ask you something about this gentleman right here on the screen right now. Let's get into this. Is his criminal background that he allegedly has, is it for killing people? Don't worry, I'll wait. Somebody can answer that for me. Is it for killing someone? Was his warrant for his arrest for killing someone? Was it for stabbing someone? Was it for maliciously wounding someone? Don't get quiet now. The comments was coming in crazy. Now I'm asking a simple question. I know it's Brandon Tatum's and Candace Owen followers in the room. Was it for killing someone? Was it for hurting someone? So you mean you're frantically panicking because someone twice this guy's side is wrestling with him and he jumps back in the car to get away from him? You seen the video like I did. So let's paint the narrative that this guy was a violent criminal and a weapon needed to be drawn on him. Not a taser, not pepper spray, a gun. A gun. And we're making all these excuses of why, oh, well, this guy was a resisting arrest. This guy has a criminal background. This guy was 20 years old. 20 years old. He wasn't bigger than your partner. He wasn't stronger than your partner. Should he have resisted arrest? No one's agreeing with that. No one's agreeing that he should have resisted arrest. We're agreeing that he shouldn't have been killed. He shouldn't have been shot. So you mean to tell me as a police officer, you skip past non-lethal to lethal in a blink of an eye because your partner is wrestling with someone? Crazy. That's crazy. Let me let this play.
Something when you say that the corporations seek to control this country. They're willing to give up money. They're willing to let their stores be rioted and looted because they see something bigger that they're gaining from these riots and these lootings and these lies. And that is control over this country. It's power and it's sinister and it's sick.
And if some Pakistani liquor store owner is destroyed in the process, like, you think Jeff Bezos cares? No. Candace Owens, so nicely put. As always, it's great to see you. Thank you.
When that was guy I like. So let's not forget that it is Derek Chauvin who is on trial for murder. Right now, as I predicted earlier, and a lot of people did, it seems to be George Floyd. I know about his drug use. I know about his prior criminal history.
I want you guys to hear this real quick. This is D.L. Hughley. Anybody that's following the George Floyd case, I was asked to speak about it a while back. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to this. And the reason why is because within 48 hours of this man dying, the narrative was he had a criminal history. And I was taken back, and I was like, did y'all see the same video clip that I saw? Did you see the same footage that I saw of this man having someone kneel on his neck until he died, until he gasped for air, until he called his mom? In some type of way, it was justified, and I don't know how. And I'm going to be honest with you, that shit is scary. It's not just scary for me. It's scary for the people that's coming behind me, the next generation. Well, just don't resist arrest, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay. So every time you hear something about someone having an issue with the police, you're saying that they resisted arrest. Every time you hear something about someone having an issue with a man in the uniform or a woman in the uniform, they resisted and they deserve that. Because we can into their background to see if they had a criminal record. Ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't make you nervous or if that doesn't have you concerned, if you've ever gotten in any type of trouble, let's say you was in college and you got into some trouble, you was in high school, you got into some trouble. Hey, you got into a fight you shouldn't have got into. You were drinking and driving. Something happened and the police were called. And people are using that to validate anything that happens to you. They're validating what happens to you that is inhuman, that is unjustly, by saying that, well, you had a criminal past, so you deserve that, rightfully so. You know what's so funny? I've yet to see someone that was Caucasian die, and someone said they had a criminal past, so they deserve to die, rightfully so. I want you to listen to D.L. Hughley and how he breaks down the information for the George Floyd trial. Here we go.
When that was guy I like. So let's not forget that it is Derek Chauvin who is on trial for murder. Right now, as I predicted earlier, and a lot of people did, it seems to be George Floyd. I know about his drug use. I know about his prior criminal history. But the one who is on trial is Derek Chauvin. I don't know anything, and they're not allowing them to bring in, this is evidence, I don't know anything, or the jury doesn't know anything about his 17 allegations of abuse. They don't know anything about the fact that he was fired. Why is it that the man who was murdered, we know his failings, we know his foibles, we know his shortcomings? And another thing, what bothers me the most, George Floyd is not dead because of the things that he did wrong in his past. He is dead because of the things Derek Chauvin did wrong in his past.
Wow. Wow. I'm going to rewind it. George Floyd is not dead because of the things that he did wrong in his past. He's wrong because of the man that did wrong in his past that killed him. What are we talking about, people? What are we talking about? You guys sound like fucking jackasses talking about George Floyd's history. His history didn't get him killed. His history didn't get him killed. A police officer kneeling on his neck, on his back, on his legs, cutting off his oxygen to the point that he could not breathe, where it was videotaped. That is the problem. That is the goddamn thesis. That is the subject of this goddamn topic. Well, we need to talk about him and his drug use. We need to talk about him and his criminal background. That is fucking stupid and idiotic. And there are people with multiple degrees. There are people with multiple businesses. There are people with multiple resources that sit down and say, he deserved to die. Candace Owens being one of them. How do you dehumanize a person? How do you embarrass a person? How do you show that, you know what? I mean more than you. It's not about you. It's about how I feel about you. Let's talk about your criminal background. Let's talk about you don't live in my city. You don't live in my town. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the right to say I can do whatever I want to do to you just because I wear a uniform. I have the right to push you around and call you names. And I'm even cocky enough to say, you know what? When I call the police, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to like the end result, sir. You're not going to like the end result, ma'am. To the point where when it's caught on video, you have no choice but to now deal with it. But this is happening every day in a neighborhood near you. While people turn a blind eye. While people say, well, you know, hey. Let's finish.
He has a propensity for being brutal. But because the judge and jury the judge and the judicial system do not want to prejudice the jury against him, they're not allowing that evidence in. They're not letting that evidence in because for some reason they seem to have forgotten that he is no longer a police officer. He is a man being charged for murder. Murder. So all of he's given the courtesy of still having once worn the uniform and all the accoutrements of that while still being tried for murder. It prejudices the jury when you don't hear all the things that are in his history. Why is it that if I am on trial after the uniform, they bring up my entire past? Whether I was abusive, whether I was on drugs, what people at my job had to say about me. But if I wore a uniform and committed those same crimes, all of a sudden those things are off the hook. They're out of bounds. Because for some reason, we can't see people for what they are. Absent a uniform, that man is a murderer, plain and simple. And no matter what people say, they always color it a little bit differently when you happen to have worn a uniform, when you did it under color of authority. All of a sudden, we can't know about his history, which is so relevant to this. If you have done it before, you will do it again. We say that all the time in our lives. But we can't know that he was brutal. We can't know what people at his work thought about him. We can't know that he was fired from the police department because of the very same things he's being on trial for now. Why is that? Because he once wore a uniform. And another thing, why is it that virtually every other profession, if you're involved in something heinous, where somebody loses their life, if you're a bus driver, you have an accident, you're immediately drug tested. If you're a train operator and you have an accident, someone dies, you're immediately drug tested. Airplane pilots, the same thing. We know how high the propensity is for alcohol and substance abuse in law enforcement. Why is it when something like this happens, they're not immediately tested? And even when they are, we should know that too. Why do they get the presumption of protection? Because when you know things about a police officer who has committed a crime and you try to hide those things, whether you're a municipality or a union, you are an accomplice to the very crime that he was sworn to protect. He was sworn to fight those crimes. And if you try to do anything to obfuscate that, you too might as well be a co-conspirator. In Los Angeles, a young man taking out his garbage, the police pull guns on him, and for 2 years they fought not to have that video released. They said it would be bad for morale. What is bad for morale is having cops walking around acting like that. Why do you get to take the video camera and keep it away? It isn't for your personal use. It is because we don't trust you. It isn't for you to make your opus. It's because we don't trust you. If you're a person who committed murder, treat them like you would anybody else. Let us know every single thing they've done. Because right now, George Floyd is on trial for his history, but it isn't his history that killed him. It is Derek Chauvin's. He is no longer a police officer.
I want you guys to hear something very clear so that way you can say you heard it. George Floyd is on trial for his history. Let that sink in for, matter of fact, let me do this real quick. Matter of fact, not even this right here. George Floyd is on trial for his history. For his history. How many of you guys have a spot-free past? Have a perfect angelic past? Have a past not wrinkled with any dents or nicks of abuse, of violence, of criminal history? You wasn't an accomplice to anything. You don't know anything. You haven't done anything. You have been on the straight and narrow. How many of you guys have a perfect past? You've been productive citizens. You never smoked any weed. Hey, you never drunk any alcohol underage. How many people have clear, productive, honest past? Ladies and gentlemen, there's not a lot of people that can say that. There are not a lot of people that can say that, you know what, I don't have anything in my past, whether on record or not. You know personally that you've done some fuck shit at some point in time. How many people can say that? How many people say, I've never been involved in anything that someone would consider wrong? George Floyd is on trial for his past, and he's not alive. He is not alive. Let that sink in for a minute. He wasn't the man who killed anybody. He wasn't the man who suffocated someone to death and while dying had them screaming for their mother. And the man responsible for that, you're saying that his history don't matter? His history don't count? What are we teaching people? What message are we sending out to America? That as long as you wear a uniform, then your past don't matter? But God forbid, if you do something wrong, then, as long as it's videotaped, then, we may be able to do something about it. We are in a state of emergency. This is a public service announcement. We need to do better. We need to do better, and we need to do better now. If you have a platform, you should be talking about the abolishment of racism. You should be talking about the abolishment of police brutality across the board. People working together across the board. Stopping this nonsense, pushing this narrative, promoting rhetoric that only separates other people. This is a problem. And if you can't see it, I don't know what to tell you. This is a problem, folks. That when you get stopped, you don't know if this is going to be your last stop, because guess what? You don't know if the officer is having a bad day. Can you imagine your son or daughter going through something like this? Can you imagine your son or daughter going through something like this, being told the whole time you're getting punched in the face or pushed around or pepper sprayed or held at gunpoint, stop resisting? What if it's you? What if it's you being choked to death, suffocated? I love when people pride themselves on saying I was so perfect in life that, as long as I don't resist, nothing will happen to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I look at it, I'm saying, you know what? These tragedies are not happening close to home for these people. For the Brandon Tatums, for the Candace Owens, they never give the narrative that this happened to my best friend, that this happened to my mother, this happened to my father, this happened to my sister, this happened to my brother. They never give the narrative of anything happening close to them. It's always, well, if they stop resisting, if they stop acting up. It's never, I personally did that myself. I personally was a knucklehead. I personally resisted arrest, or I personally talked back to the police. Like, where do you share the narrative other than just having the same skin color? Trying to prove you're not like them. Because that's what it boils down to for Candace Owens and for Brandon Tatum. It's all about proving I'm not like the other black people. I'm not like them. But you know what's so funny? When they get stopped by the police that don't know them in a rural town, rural area, I wonder how that would go for them if they even travel through those towns. If they even travel through those towns, I wonder how well they would fare against someone being racist, someone punching them and them screaming, "Stop resisting." When the narrative hits home, it changes the outlook. I say again, when the narrative hit home, it changes your outlook and perspective on things.
He should no longer be afforded those customs and considerations. He is a murderer, plain and simple. Whether he used to wear a badge or not, he took a life. He did it, and we should get to know everything we would if he were just a run-of-the-mill murderer, because that is exactly what he is. His occupation shouldn't have, a former occupation, should have nothing to do with the evidence or all the information we get to have on them. I know what George Floyd's history was. I know what happened in his past. I know what kind of person and the things he's been to. What I don't know is that much about Derek Chauvin. He can decide not to take the stand and not say anything. You're not a cop anymore. You're just a man who murdered a man and who's using the system that has worked for you so long to get off for it. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, at some point, we're going to have the tough conversation. We're going to have to say that, you know what, enough's enough. We just need to stop this nonsense. We need to get away from this narrative that once a criminal, always a criminal. Once a bad pass, always a bad pass. No one should die and their murderer is uplifted, is praised. Well, you were a police officer. You were a military veteran. If you kill someone, all that other shit is out the window. I don't want to hear about the country you served. I don't want to hear about the protecting and serving, because you failed. You failed. You misused and mistreated people in your uniform. You decided that your authority was to be respected to the highest extent, regardless of how many people see what you do, hear about what you do, or understand what you do, you thought that what you do was better than the person that you talk to. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all human beings. We deserve respect. Regardless if our past was bad, great, exciting, whatever the case may be, we deserve all to be respected, to be treated fair and impartial, regardless of what uniform you wear, regardless of what our walk of life has been. Everyone has not been given a silver spoon. Does that mean you can go out there and rob people and do bad things? No. However, shit happens. Shit happens. And if we're saying that we're using the criminal system to say, well, once you served your time, you've paid your debt to society. Well, how come you gotta have to continue to pay your debts to society after you die? After you die, you have to continue to pay your debt to society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we do something different. It is time that we promote a different narrative. It is time that we change the rhetoric, because there are a lot of people that are promoting division on all types of levels. I'm just really baffled by the conversation that I'm hearing from a lot of people on this topic. Hell, there's some people not even covering this topic. They don't believe it's important enough to do so. But it's scary. Where we are right now, it's scary at what we're facing right now as people, as human beings. And I feel sorry for the next generation. Like, what are they going to face? You know, who's going to tell them that they're not important because they have some bad stuff going on in their background? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to do something different. It is time to change the narrative. It's time. It's time we look at this with a different set of lenses and change the narrative. We have to end racism. But first of all, before we can end it, we got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. We have to come together and sit down and say, hey, we need to stop this by any means necessary. And the people that promote it, the people that think that it's okay to do, they must be halted. If you don't know what this is, you should know who this is. This is Mario J, and this is Tough Love. Until next time, peace. Dot up.
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So, what'll make you? Good?